let's talk about what kind of car would qualify ultimately as a hack. Now you see, the Lamborghini Urus was founded back in 2019 and it went all the way to 2022. And then in 2023, all the way till 2024, the Urus S and the Performante variation came out. And then the regular one, just the base Urus, basically went on for about 3 years. So you had about a total of 5 full years of Urus production. A lot of cars were made, so it doesn't make it a very exclusive SUV, but nonetheless, it makes it a lot of value. And once they depreciate, they get pretty exciting. I wanted to share this with you because for the most part, between 2019 and 2020 cars, you had one type of Urus. 21 to 22, you had some very minor updates, and then 23 to 24, you had a different car. And now, while right this moment, the new 2025 Urus SE Hybrid has been introduced, that is something that is not going to be part of our conversation today, nor will the Urus S and the Urus Performante, but instead we're going to focus most of our time right here between the 19 to 22, where the best possible deals are possible. Just like the car that I showed you outside, this being again a 2021, something that is not too new, not too old, but you saw it looked just as good with low mileage as a brand new car, and the majority of the world wouldn't even know the difference. So let's talk about that car specifically more than anything else, and talk about how the numbers add up. Now, if you've ever tried to lease a Lamborghini Urus, you're roughly looking at about $2,900 a month. This number is plus tax for your local state. And in addition to that, you will have roughly about a $20,000 down payment. So you'll have $20,000 down, $19,000 to change, and then you'll be paying roughly about $3,000 a month. If you account for the tax on top of that, you can go there. Now, this is a typical lease deal. This lease deals last roughly about 24 months. And so in 24 months, you will often have warranty left. You'll have a brand new car. And this lease will end up costing, and I'm going to get my calculator here to put it in context for you because I think it matters. All right, so here we are. Let's take a look on my calculator and see what kind of numbers we're coming up with. Now, I'm going to use my phone here because I'm not a human calculator. We do 2,900. We're going to do times 24 months. That gives us a total of $69,600, and we're going to add the $20,000, which is the down payment. That means we now have $89,000 and $600, right? $89,600 in the duration of 24 months. Now we're going to divide that by 24, giving us a true cost of ownership loss at roughly about $37,33. So this is the amount of money plus tax, of course, and you can add roughly for Florida about 6%, which would put you roughly about $3,900. Now I'm doing it this way because I think it's important to realize how the leasing programs work. So $3,957 is a true cost of ownership for each and every month you drive it. Basically, it's a $4,000 loss. Now, I want you to understand something. These vehicles roughly have about a $250,000 MSRP, which is pretty cool, you know, like roughly a $250,000 truck. These loaded 1921s, then we went into 21, 22, 23, 24, and price increases almost every single year. Now an Urus SE will cost somewhere around the middle of 300s, but for now, this was a $250K truck back then. And if we take a look at where the values are ending up today, the majority of 21s can be bought between 190 and 220K with very low miles. So I want to just point this out so you understand the depreciation schedule, just for you to understand, between the brand new car and the cost basis for the car is significantly different. And here's why I'm making this point. You see, I just told you earlier that the lease loss was roughly $89,600. I'm just telling you that this car, when it first came out, it was $250,000. And that fast forward now 3.5 years later, not 24 months, 3.5 years later, the value of this car is between 190 and 220. Now, let's take a moment here, just one moment, and just say, for an instance here, that this car is roughly an average of 200K in decent shape with low miles away from the 50K. This car has lost 50K in value, but this loan has cost you roughly $90,000 over the course of 2 years. You see where the lease becomes an entire scam? So you return your car thinking you're free and clear, really, but you were in a position to basically lose $90,000 on a $50,000 depreciation schedule. How is that not robbery? And this is the reason why we don't like leases, okay? Now let's take that very same equation here and say that you bought the car through Exotic Car Hacks on year 3. Now, using Exotic Car Hacks principle, the majority of our members have been buying Uruses between $210,000, $220,000. Now, assuming a 2-year driving, right? And assuming this number comes back, now you have a $20,000 loss, right? And this is, again, we're looking at an Urus, not a really big exotic car. But I want to point out something. You have about a $20,000 loss in the very same scenario instead of a $90,000 loss. Now, we're going to get to the taxes, guys. Don't worry, because a lease allows you to pay the tax just like we calculated it here, right? Now, using my proprietary strategy found in Exotic Car Hacks, you can actually avoid paying all the taxes at all. Even if you finance the vehicle, you don't have to pay any sales tax because we teach you how to legally avoid that. But let's talk here for one moment here. Now, this strategy doesn't work in California, so I just want to be clear. But let's say anywhere else you're using this strategy, now you have a $20,000 loss, right? And assuming you know what I'm talking about, you have lost $20,000 for the duration of 2 years. And if we take this $20,000, and I want to point something out because I'm going to do it even more, I'm going to say that this $20,000, I'm going to add about $4,000 to that number. And that number is going to be the unexpected repairs you may have gone through, which really are not even going to be $4,000. Historically, it's less than like $700. But let's just say you went through $4,000 in unexpected repairs. It puts you at a $24,000 loss across 2 years. Now, if you divide that by 24, you're now going to have a $1,000 loss for the very, very same truck. Now, this is really, really important. I want you to understand that. You're having a $1,000 loss here for the very, very same truck, okay? Now, I want to point something else. This is your total cost of ownership here. This is not your monthly payment, okay? And I want you to understand the difference because poor people think, you know, how much can I afford a month? Rich people look at what is my real cost of ownership. So leasing, $4,000, hacking, $1,000 a month, same exact car, same exact issues. Now, I want to go one step further here because your lease here was $2,900 a month with $20,000 down. I want to go to a car loan calculator here for a second because I want to point out something because a lot of people are confused about this as they hear me talk about these things. They get a little bit confused. So if we take this car at $220,000, and again, this was assuming we had bought it at the highest level possible. This is the worst case scenario. And we spread that payment over 84 months the way easily car loans can do at a rate of 5.9%, which is the average car loan rate if you know the way Exotic Car Hacks teaches you to do things. And we take that right there, and I just want to give you a very easy number so you can kind of understand. If I do all of that, my payment at the time of purchase for this $220,000, and I want to point this out, with zero down, with not even putting the same $20 down, is $3,057. Now I want to point out that on the surface, leasing is always looked at as a significantly cheaper alternative. And you can see here, $2,900 a month versus $3,057 a month isn't that big of a difference, especially if that money's coming back to you. Because the real big difference is that while you're paying $3,000 a month, in this top case, which is a leasing opportunity, this is how much you're actually losing per month once you tally up the end of your contract. In this particular opportunity, you're paying $3,057 a month with zero down. And I want to point out what this looks like on a calculator. You're actually putting in $3,057, okay, every single month times 24, okay? Now, that means you've basically paid $73,000 towards the car, okay? But your real cost of ownership was basically $24,000. And so minus some of the interest you're paying, you're going to get roughly about $45,000 to $47,000 of your money back at the time of sale. Now, I want to show you something that's really important here because this is how math works for rich people that poor people don't seem to understand. Cost of ownership is really, really relevant here because you're not just losing money, you're positioning yourself in a way to actually create a really interesting situation. You're paying your $3,000 a month the same way you would have done in a lease, but that money is being saved into the car as equity. Now, I did a video on YouTube called Expenditures versus Equities. You should check it out, showing you how wealthy people keep getting richer versus poor people keep getting poor, and how a luxury can be looked at same cars can be looked at two entirely different scenarios in any basis just because people don't seem to understand how it all works. So in this particular case, which I think is really important, in the first case, you've lost, meaning that money's gone out of you, $90,000. And in the second case, in your worst case scenario, you've lost between $20,000 and $24,000. Now, even with the interest on your loan, you are still retaining roughly $45,000 of that same payment back into your pocket. This is incredibly important because not only you've saved the $20,000 down payment that you're not going to need if you hack versus lease, but you've also retained that $45,000 hidden back into the car. So when you sell your car, you now have roughly a $50,000 down payment that you can use for whatever you want. You can use it to reinvest, you can use it to put it back in your savings, or you can use it on your next car as a down payment. This is critical to understanding hacking. Hacking is a game of math. Once you realize how this all works and it kind of keeps going, then it kind of works. Now, I'm going to give you an even greater scenario. If you hack the Urus even further, let's say 3, 4, 5, 6 years, that value gets even bigger and better. So like that number, 24,000, over the next 1 extra year will probably turn somewhere between 26 to 27. Divided by 36, and that number right here keeps shrinking, eventually bringing your cost of ownership to just a couple of $100 a month for like a 3 to 4 year ownership time behind an Urus. This is a really, really big deal and something you really have to understand if you want to get wealthy in life. You have to stop buying the monthly payment and you have to start buying the equity payments, meaning how do I actually transfer equity instead of create expenses? And now, while most people would say, here's a tax write-off, buddy, you have a tax opportunity, I want to just point you that even in the best case scenario where you get a 30% tax write-off on that exact amount, your real saving on the taxes in your monthly is significantly higher, even at the end of the day from this, and you still legally can find ways to write this off. It's just a different type of write-off than a lease. But so both opportunities, because the car is what we call a Section 179 and is heavier than 6,000 pounds, it can technically be used as a write-off in both cases as a truck. So in the previous case of a lease, very different. In the case of an actual hack, still a writable asset. So again, you have a ton of opportunity here to actually understand and learn how a Lamborghini Urus can actually be hacked instead of leased, and as a result can lead you to a lot of financial success and still give you the exact same car you could have leased to begin with. So would you buy a used Urus knowing you can actually save and literally turn your cost of ownership at 25% or 20% at a pot and still have the exact same car, or would you still rather lease a car? This has been another math behind the Lamborghini Urus at Exotic Car Hacks. I'll catch you next time.